Hello! Another video. This weekend, this one I've closed the curtains because the natural light I did in the previous one had me looking a little overexposed. So I'm hoping this will turn out better. So I did the Atari Arcade 1 collection a ways back, and at the time slagged it off as being like just the worst arcade compilation they had, simply because on the Evercade, just because of the control interface choices and some of the game choices, or the fact that most of the game choices are in fact for analog controls, which the Evercade lacks. Although some of them, like Centipede and Millipede, you can make a go of it. Night Driver is sort of playable, and some of the other games are just using buttons. The embarrassing Asteroids Deluxe, which is not Asteroids Deluxe, and is just Asteroids with the Asteroids Deluxe back glass, which is just still continues to befuddle and amuse me. I do wish they would update that and rename and get rid of it. I mean, or do the other way, actually make it Asteroids Deluxe. Although I guess they'd have to renew license with Atari to do that. But anyway, so after that video, I did a clear out of carts, and I went, ow, boom, got rid of it, and then within like a few weeks of that, what happens, of course, is that there's an update that adds mouse support to the Evercade and a number of games, including several of these titles. So by that time, the price of this cart went cuckoo bananas. I mean, at first I think you could get it on CEX for like 35 quid, or 30 quid, and then it went up to 40. I saw people on eBay selling it for like 70 pounds, even used. And I was just like, oh man. And of course it's a legacy cart, because although we do have the recent Atari Arcade 2, it doesn't appear that Blaze either was able to or tried to renew its license for the older stuff. So all the old, the two VCS compilations, for example, continue to be legacy as well as this one. But recently someone on eBay decided to sell it for a more reasonable price of 28 pounds, which was like, an extra tenner over what I paid for it when I bought it brand new. It's in mint condition, the guy patched it already, so it's all up to date, which is pretty cool, and it's in great nick. So no complaints from me. And I've done this before, I mean, I don't even want to get into, I bought Resident Evil 4 for the Wii 5 times, if you include the digital download I bought on the Wii U, which put an end to that, because it's like, right now it's it's done, I can't sell this or give it away, so, I'm keeping this game. Because there are games where it's like, I kind of go, I played that and I'm done with that, and then I go, gee, I really liked that, like a year or two later, and then I end up buying it again. And so this doesn't bother me spending money on this cart twice. If they come up with a new edition that actually has Asteroids Deluxe on it and sorts the rest of the control issues, I will be absolutely, triple dipping on it. But I thought, since I've reacquired it, in anticipation of doing this, some of the mouse support they've added, most of the games I have don't deal with it. I don't care about the PlayStation point and click stuff that they have, which also has mouse support. Night Driver on the Atari Collection 1 or 2, the VCS version, added mouse support. So I thought, well, I will, try that. Now, I have done a separate video about this bespoke arcade controller that I got. It's USB based, it has a spinner on it and a joystick and a bunch of buttons. It also works Jim Dandy with my Evercade. It has a button that the person I had it made, who made it for me, which is Retro Game Boys online. This button does a toggle in the functionality of the joystick to make it Evercade compatible, because for some weird reason the default HID interface in a USB joystick controller doesn't work with the Evercade. The Evercade is looking apparently for a hat switch setting. And if you don't know, if you have ever seen a flight stick, for people who are really serious into their flight sims, or MechWarrior, which also supports such a thing, this is a tiny little, like, thumbstick, basically, directional stick that allows you to, like, target, select weapons and things like that. It's sort of like having the equivalent of like a D-pad on a gamepad, but it's on like a flight yoke. Anyway, so I used this and tried it out with Night Driver, and it works great because a spinner controller, as I might have said before, will play paddle games just fine. The technology between an Atari 2600 potentiometer-driven paddle and the encoding wheel inside of the Atari 2600 driving controller, or indeed the spinners that you find in arcades, are not the same, but they are seen the same by computing devices. The problem with a potentiometer-driven paddle is it has a terminus on either end. So I won't go into the technology about it because I'm not an electrician, and so I don't fully, I'm not going to speak with authority on that, but you're basically sending some kind of signal to where you are in the range of motion that's available to you, to your target device. Whereas the spinner, can basically tell you're turning clockwise or anti-clockwise, and you can just spin it to your heart's content, but it also does, the faster you spin it, the more acceleration there is, whereas the potentiometer-driven one will just tell, oh, you've turned it a lot, and move your paddle or whatever that much further. So this is a good solution for someone who's more serious and wants to spend money on a bespoke device. But if not, you're using a mouse. Now, I'm not into mice. I don't have them, but what I have used in the past to play first-person shooters on my old Mac before such things stopped working was a Kensington Expert mouse. A Kensington, this is a later generation one that I got recently off eBay. I think this cost me 40 quid, I want to say. It's kind of annoying because you have to make sure you get one with a USB-A type connector, because you're dealing with the Evercade, which is using USB-A for its controllers, and a lot of stuff has moved on. And furthermore, a lot of these things are using Bluetooth. I didn't want to go wireless because I don't want to add an additional possible, a lag issue potentially. This is a lot more streamlined than any one I've used before. It's a very thin thing. It's 4 buttons, and the ball just pops right out. And it's about the size of like a billiard ball, which is what I liked about it. It's got heft to it, because at the time I was using it to play like Tempest and stuff, and I wanted something that was going to have some spin to it. So it's got some good action. It's optical. The insides, there's no rollers. This is an optical device. Older trackballs will have rollers, which can, because the whole point of them is to track motion, will have more friction, which if you're trying to do a spin like in a game like Tempest, you don't really want a lot of friction, because it's going to impede your ability to spin around really fast. This works with the Evercade. I've already played these games myself just to test it out. Unfortunately, the Evercade assumes that your mouse is only going to have 2 buttons, which I don't understand why, since one of the games on there is Missile Command, which has not been given mouse support for reasons I don't understand. So not all of these games, even though the vast majority of these games are using some kind of encoding wheel, like a driving game, like Night Driver, for example, no, there's no analog support there. Pong, again, they've tweaked it so it plays better with a D-pad, but again, in the arcade, paddle controller, no mouse support. I don't understand why. So the only ones that have been updated with mouse support are Super Breakout. And again, Warlords. Warlords use a frickin' trackball in the arcade. Nope, not here. Okay, whatever. So the updated ones, oh, and they haven't fixed Asteroids Deluxe, still the same goofiness. So the only games that I'm going to be trying out here, oh, and Liberator, that was also a trackball. It's like the reverse missile command. But the ones that have been given updates are Super Breakout, Centipede, Millipede, and Crystal Castles. That's it. So Super Breakout, I've played with this, and wow, amazing, so good. And unlike the MAME version, I can actually figure out how the heck to choose a game in it. So Evercade, you know, you've done it, and it's... Thank you very much, Blaze, for doing that, because I love Super Breakout. I like it on the home console, but the arcade has that little extra bit of challenge, and it has the vertical play field, so you've got more distance from the paddle to the bricks. So I like that, and dynamic a bit better. Although it is more challenging because your paddle's stubbier, and then when you hit the top bricks, it becomes even smaller, which seems grossly unfair, but you're trying to get your money. What can you say? But the other games, they work great. Unfortunately, with the mouse, it only assumes 2 buttons, and you cannot remap them. But it is still beta, so hopefully they'll refine that. I mean, you know, as it stands, what you do is you have your Evercade controller plugged into the port 1, and any subsequent controller plugged in to port 2, and what I would like to see them do, you know, it's like the Evercade controller is perfectly usable. I could play Missile Command, I'd be perfectly happy to have my trackball and play Missile Command and use 3 of the buttons on my Evercade controller, or plug this thing in. That wouldn't really work for the menu function in port 1, but maybe, you know, if it can detect multiple controllers, maybe I could have this in like port 3, you know, and be going, hitting my buttons, you know, to do the thing. But otherwise, it is kind of a mixed bag. You are kind of sitting there going, hang on a minute, why did you do one game and not the other? I mean, Millipede, I actually remember seeing in arcades in a joystick-equipped cab. It was very much, you know, playable with a stick. I will say, however, that trackball feels better for that and for Centipede, so... Anyway, enough yakking. Let's play some Atari arcade games on Evercade, close to the way that they were meant to be played. Hi. Well, hopefully I'm a little better visible. I've got some lights on in here, but I don't want to get glare on the screen, so we'll see how we do. Hopefully it's good enough. I'm not going to put the latest update on the Evercade. I don't think it'll bring anything to this anyway. And I'm just going to kind of go through these games. I'll start out with Super Breakout because it's the only one that's going to use the spinner. And then I'll switch to my trackball, and which, you know, is the only controller that's going to be used with those games. And let's see how we do. So the way that this works, in order to choose a game, you have to press one of the buttons and then the start button to get, and then you kind of let it go to start. It's not super intuitive. I don't know why it has to work like this. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen an arcade cabinet, but I thought there was just a mode select button and you turn the spinner to choose them, or you just click through. Alright, so there's the coin. So if I go... and then I hit... oh, nope, I don't want that one. Alright, so I have to basically wait for the... there we go. Well, that was brilliant. The good thing is that now that I've done that, there's one problem with using this controller is I can't remember which button is the serve button. I can never keep both balls going for long, but the spinner, with the default config, seems to work pretty good to me. This is my least favorite mode. But with the spinner, I have a lot more fine control over the movement of of the paddle so I can actually get a rally going and do a last minute save with the bottom paddle like I just did. Oh. Let's give it one more go on a game I actually want to play. How about Cavity? I always used to like this one because of the possibility of freeing up to 3 balls, but practically speaking it's kind of challenging with 2. And I wish, that seems kind of unfair to me. Unlike Arkanoid, Super Breakout, if you hit a block and there's one below it, it will just clip right through it. It doesn't hit it for you. But this is already such a far better, I think I managed like a score of 15 with the D-pad. And obviously, on the Atari 50, this game exists, but the closest thing to an analog control they give you there is either an analog thumbstick, which is not going to give you the precision needed to play this game. I mean, it doesn't feel right at all. I'm in the orange, so it gets a bit cuckoo crazy once you do that. Is it this one? Yes. Or the touchpad, which again, okay, that's analog and you get some precision, but holding that, using the touchpad as a primary interface on a PlayStation 5 controller, or indeed on a PS4 one, is completely, now that my paddle is contracted because it went on the top. Look at that, that's like basically a pixel. I just couldn't hit any of them. But trying to do, there's no comfortable way to do that. I mean, it's really irritating. But again, Atari 50 on the computer has mouse support, for those games. So, and the freaking, the PlayStation will support mouse and keyboard interface. You could play Call of Duty with a mouse and keyboard on a PlayStation. So why the hell didn't Digital Eclipse stroke Atari put in mouse support for the PlayStation? Now I could take this little trackball and plug it into my PS5. But whatever, I guess it just counts that it's in the collection, even if it's, kind of gimped. I don't get it. Anyway, look at that score. 455. That's a high score for you. Almost cleared the board. Closest I've gotten. But it's the arcade version, so tough as nails. This is another drawback of doing this, this way is if your stuff isn't set up, like I have this little table here that I can use to set a trackball on. The cable on this thing is pretty decent length. It might actually, it's not as long as the Evercade one, which is absurd. It's like 2.5, 3 meters. But it's pretty long. But I'm also sitting much closer to my TV than probably most people do, just because of the weird shape of my lounge. Anyway, Pong. So this is not analog support, but they did tweak this so that the and it's not trying to be, this doesn't really look like the arcade. I mean, it's kind of, that just seemed to clip, clipping through my paddle. But now it's a little more, it's not quite as, the acceleration isn't as crazy. Although it does seem to have this problem of, you're in motion trying to intercept the ball, and it just clips through the paddle. And so, kind of sucks. Still, I just don't get it. Why, I mean, okay, you're doing the glory days, but the first commercial arcade game has a place in history, but that game was not a digital game. There's no code in there. It's a game that's controlled by a bunch of resistors using, the television. And you're having to emulate it. So every time you get a collection with Pong in it, guaranteed it will be different because it's somebody else's take on that. I guess you could try to emulate the resistors somehow, but since you're not using a tube television, it's still going to be an approximation. But this is just, it's not worth my time. Arcade controller to insert coin and start, and then you use your mouse. And again, can't remap it. I would probably prefer to use one of the top buttons, but only one button on my 4-button trackball will fire. And I'm hoping that eventually they, give us some ability to remap these things, but who knows when or if that will happen. It's still technically beta. But I would like to see, support for a 3-button mouse at least, if not, as I have a 4-button device. I mean, there's not a lot of games that would use that, but I might want to map insert coin and start to the trackball itself, to the trackball buttons, and not use my Evercade controller at all, except for the menu functions. But again, if you see my other video, there's no way in God's earth with the D-pad I could get this far. I mean, you can play Centipede with a D-pad, but you really need the precision. And that's what it's all about, is just a feel. I mean, Centipede wasn't a game where you're like hammering the fire button, really. It doesn't respond that way, and thank God, because the buttons on this trackball are not going to do you very well for that kind of game. You're not going to play like a Twitch shooter with these buttons. So a bespoke trackball controller is definitely something I'd love to see, but I have yet to encounter anyone who is building those things online. Maybe that will happen in the next couple of years, and I will absolutely spend to get like a 3-button or 3 or more button, or possibly another deal like I did with the spinner controller, where I have a joystick and more buttons so that it can do double duty. And this is where the acceleration is kind of needed, because if you hit it too hard, the game can't keep up with what you're doing. But I actually that's my first time getting my name up there. 2nd place. Not too shabby. In the arcade, I mean, obviously this is depending on how the difficulty setting has been used by the operator of the machine, but I remember playing at a small cafe after school. They had a Centipede machine, and I could loop through all the colors, which to me is the big achievement there. You come around and you see the opening green again, you know you're doing good. You're the Centipede master or whatever, which I think says it all right there. The fact that I can pick this up, play a game, and get a new high score kind of proves the proof in the pudding of, in this case, a trackball, but mouse control being a superior. The original interface as intended being the superior way to go. And you can see my initials there, because I do have the high score in this machine. Now this one, you're pressing the button to start. So it doesn't use the start button on your Evercade controller, it uses the fire button, or the jump button, rather, for this. And you know, like that kind of stuff, getting the last gem. I mean, again, you can sort of play this game with a D-pad, but you don't get the acceleration. Like I was able to just go zoop zoop and just run around the border here. You can't do this with a digital interface on this game. It wasn't made for that. So you know, getting the last gem like this is not easy with the D-pad. Come get me, skeleton. There you go. The Doomsdome. So imposing. So I just love, it just feels better playing this game with the original interface, which was a trackball. And obviously this is nothing about 2600 versions, because those versions of the games obviously are using a joystick, so they tweak the gameplay a bit to make it playable with a joystick. Probably getting killed by bees now. They're pretty... Nope, nope, they stayed away. Oh, God, I forgot that one. No, there's the... Get your stuff, buddy. You're taking too much time. There we go. Oh, cutscene. Running from Bratilda. Hidden ramp. Get away from the... Oh man, the frickin' bees at the same time. The trees are the worst. There is no magic bullet to kill the trees, and they are kind of... Oh, and they're following me into the secret area. Not fair. Oh, come on! He's just right up that ramp. I get hung up. I get confused. Does a tree get confused? No. Trees, apparently, walking trees are able to just get right in there. And it nicely assumes that it's the same guy getting second place, which, not too shabby. Oh, I got too... Should have been more patient. Got greedy. But like hitting these beetles, if you're using a D-pad, is like kind of suicidal. They're hard to line up properly when you're using the blunt force instrument of a D-pad. Ditto with trying to shoot the bees and the thing, you know, these things crashing down and hello. As just illustrated, they will still murder the hell out of you even if you're using a trackball. Oh man, I was up too high. I got a free life though. There we go. But I remember playing this with a D-pad, you know, those bugs I would just be, although they just murdered me again, I would be not trying to shoot them, I'd be trying to avoid them. I don't have my name up yet. I mean, Millipede is just a much harder game than Centipede generally. There's just so much going on, and the Centipedes are faster from the jump. But again, still feels better. I'm still getting a score that I'd have to reload to confirm, but I suspect was like on par or better than what I ever did with a D-pad, certainly. I mean, absolutely better than the D-pad. Probably on par with what I did last time I tested this. But there you go. I mean, do your shopping and see what you like. I highly recommend the Kensington Expert Mouse, as it is known. There's multiple generations of these things. I remember, and they made them wireless too, so you can find those, but they are using a radio frequency. They're not Bluetooth. They are using an RF dongle, which actually should be fine, I would imagine. But hey, just, you know, your mileage may vary. Do some research, and you will be looking for something that's possibly not vintage, but, you know, like a 10-year-old kind of device. Either that, or you could possibly try your luck with a cheap, you know, optical mouse from like your local dollar store. Anyway, that's that for that. The next one of these videos, I imagine, will be I did go and decide to plump for the new upcoming VSR, the second iteration of the VSR, just on its own, no game pack in. So that should be coming, and then of course I think this month we also get the Taito collections. Yay! I'm so looking forward to those. But until then, keep gaming.